truly being a number one player. The Philadelphia 76ers have been linked to Damian Lillard and the Portland Trailblazers guard for quite some time. And Damian Lillard, it's true, he did not have the best Olympics. I'll be the first to say it. I expected bigger numbers, bigger production out of Damian Lillard. We did not see that at the Olympics. Now, again, part of that is the abundance of talent and how stacked this U.S. national team is, that it doesn't always need to feature a guy like Damian Lillard. But the reality is now he just came back from the Tokyo Olympics. He just experienced winning a gold medal, getting that itch of what it's like to play with elite talent. And so now you have Daryl Morey coming out and basically acknowledging, listen, our goal is not about how many assets we can get back for Ben Simmons. Our number one goal is acquiring Damian Lillard. That's the number one goal. That's what he said. He said verbatim, it's less about trading for Ben Simmons and more about acquiring Damian Lillard. And at first, when he approached the Golden State Warriors about a trade for Ben Simmons, we know that what he put on the table was he was demanding at least 4 first-round picks and at least an all-star level caliber player. Now, they teach you in business and in negotiating that in negotiating 101, it's always important to overvalue your asset and ask for an outrageous amount to start. You always want to inflate the value of your asset. And then as you continue to engage in discussions, you slowly start to narrow in and zero in on an actual trade that you think more accurately reflects the value of your asset. That's what they're doing right now with Ben Simmons. No one is going to be giving Daryl Morey and the 76ers that amount of capital for Ben Simmons right now, especially after the postseason that he had. But here's the problem with Daryl Morey's approach right now. It's great that you want to acquire Damian Lillard. It's great that you're asking for all these assets, but you've got a major, major problem, which is a severely fractured relationship, almost to the point where it's completely corroded with Ben Simmons. It's one thing to put the onus and the blame on a guy for costing you a playoff series. That happens all the time. But most of the time, those discussions happen internally. The problem here, and the reason why this relationship has probably withered down all the way and may have completely eroded, is because of the public comments that were made. There's no question that the Philadelphia 76ers, it was justified to seek more talent. And it's justified that their reaction to Ben Simmons' playoffs were, hey, we need an upgrade. It's understandable, very justifiable. What isn't justifiable is when you have the coach, is when you have the star player publicly denigrating the guy, disparaging the guy, and then expecting to be able to communicate with him and say, hey, come on board so we can make you a little bit happier so then we can ship you off. Well, Ben Simmons is saying, the hell with that. Why would I capitulate? Why would I acquiesce and come on in and communicate with you guys when you're simply trying to just trade me the first minute you can? And that's what's happened. And so the relationship is so fractured that if you're the Portland Trailblazers right now, you've got a tremendous amount of leverage, perhaps the most amount of leverage that you could ever hope for in a potential deal like this. And there's 2 reasons why. First of all, well, Damian Lillard is the more coveted commodity. He's the more sought after commodity. He's the higher valued commodity. And number 2 is that I mentioned, or as I mentioned rather, that fractured relationship between Ben Simmons and the front office of the 76ers. They know, the Portland Trailblazers know that the 76ers have to trade him away. There's no way that Ben Simmons can return to that locker room and still play with confidence and be able to flourish when he knows that Doc Rivers basically called into question whether he can win with Ben Simmons as his point guard. When Joel Embiid says that the turning point of a Game 7 loss versus the Atlanta Hawks is when Ben Simmons drove to the basket, had a wide open dunk, attempt and passed it off to Matisse Thybulle. He flat out said, this was the reason why we lost Game 7. How can he recover from that? And so I think that the damage that's been done may be unsalvageable, may be irreparable at this point. And so the leverage is totally with the Portland Trailblazers, because the problem is this right now. You're the Portland Trailblazers. Yes, you're blessed to have Damian Lillard. He has fortunately stuck around with your organization, with your franchise for 9 seasons. But what this comes down to, it's as simple as this. The only way that Damian Lillard is going to remain a Portland Trailblazer depends entirely on this offseason. If Neil O'Shea makes some kind of move, makes some significant trade for a player this offseason, Damian Lillard will stay at least one more year. Doesn't guarantee a long-term stay, but I can guarantee you what will cause him to leave. And that's if they don't do anything and they stand pat. If the Portland Trailblazers don't make a significant move this offseason, Damian Lillard is not staying. He will not even remain past this year. And it's a shame because he loves the city of Portland. He has profusely loved and adored publicly the city of Portland. And I think that he truly wants to give Chauncey Billups a chance. He wants to give Chauncey Billups an opportunity to cultivate a culture and to see what they can do, especially with his defensive background. I think that with Damian Lillard, this team will do a lot better, even with the current roster. But you just lost Carmelo Anthony. And the fact of the matter is, we just saw case in point with the Milwaukee Bucks. What did they do last offseason? They made a splashy move signing Drew Holiday. Now, at the time, no one could predict whether or not that would yield a championship. But what it did say to Giannis was that their front office was finally willing to make some type of trade, to change the norm, to go out, to be bold, to be brave, have some courage, have some gumption, take a chance to try and appease your star basketball player. The Portland Trailblazers, if you look at the history of the NBA over the last decade, the most frugal NBA team has been the Portland Trailblazers. That cannot happen. That cannot remain the norm if you're trying to hold on to Damian Lillard. It absolutely just can't happen. And again, this is obviously a fluid situation and a fluid question. And I don't think that the answer is going to happen within the next week. It solely depends on whether or not the Trailblazers make a move, whether Neil O'Shea makes a move. Because we just saw that as much as I'm sure Damian Lillard loves Chauncey Billups, respects the hell out of Chauncey Billups, James Harden had the same situation in Houston. I'm sure that he actually liked Stephen Silas as an individual. I'm sure he felt a little badly that his desired departure from Houston coincided with Stephen Silas's arrival. I'm sure he felt badly about that. But at the end of the day, he had to care about himself more than the Houston Rockets. What would give him the greatest chance would put him in a more conducive situation to winning than the Houston Rockets. Doesn't matter that Stephen Silas was there. And I think the same thing is going to apply to Damian Lillard here. I'm sure he respects the hell out of Chauncey Billups. But at the end of the day, he's 9 years into the league. He wants to win a title. And if Neil O'Shea and the Trailblazers front office don't do anything, well, then it's time to go. It's as simple as that. That is, in and of itself, what's going to determine whether or not he stays.